Welcome to Walking in Their Shoes. Welcome to another episode of Walking in Their Shoes, a podcast where we invite entrepreneurs and recognized professionals to step into their customers' shoes. In these discussions, our guests will share their ongoing efforts to understand their customer needs and the tools they employ to attain excellence in customer experience. Both professionally and personally, I'm a firm believer of constant learning and growth, being a student basically. And in business, this mindset is paramount, and it should start always by its leader. Only through this approach you can attain excellence in a business. In Walking in Their Shoes, we also discover what are the values and aspirations of our guests and how do they instill these values in their organization to ensure customers have the best possible experience. We're in a very transformative period where more and more industries are shifting their gears to put customers at the center of their efforts. And it's very interesting to hear from our guests how are they reinventing their practices to embrace customer centricity, meeting and exceeding customer expectations, and creating a more personalized experience for their clients. Today, I have the honor of spending some time with Bashar Wali, an entrepreneur that defines himself as a born leader, a bit of a rebel, and a citizen of the world. He's a founder, a father, and a hotel fanatic. Some might even say that he's a bit obsessed with hotels, but he says that it's really the humans behind it that drives him. Just in New York City alone, he's been in 241 hotels. Mostly lifestyle hotels that go from luxury brands to hostels. When Bashar isn't traveling, he's home with his wife and kids in Portland, Oregon, dreaming up the hotels of tomorrow. Bashar has done every job in a hotel, from frying an egg to negotiating a deal. Upon his 30-year career in hospitality, he has worked for some of the most prestigious hotel brands in the world. Prior to launching his two businesses, he served as president and CEO of Provenance Hotels for 15 years, growing the company from 5 to 15 hotels and expanding the collection from the Pacific Northwest to an award-winning national brand. Bashar is hungry to live life at its fullest, and his levels of curiosity make him constantly question what's possible. Bashar is always looking for the spark that creates better human experiences. And with that mission, he's been able to bring together a group that's better and more inspiring than the sum of its parts. As a founder and CEO of this assembly and Practice Hospitality, Bashar's message is unwavering. Service is what you deliver. Hospitality is how you make people feel. Welcome to Walking in Their Shoes, Bashar. How are you?
Thank you. Delighted to be with you.
There's a quote that I took from one of your YouTube videos, actually. And also, I think it would kind of summarize your whole career experience. And it says the following. You said, people want to do business with people. Is your availability as a business to make human connections what ultimately will win you the game in any industry? Starting with such an inspiring quote, I'd like to kind of go back in time and explore a bit and talk a bit about your childhood. So I would love to hear, where did you grow up? Because you have not like the most American name we could imagine. So just tell us a bit about your upbringing. Where did you spend your years? What kind of experiences you went through? And if any or some of those experiences kind of like shaped the Bashar we know now and influenced your decision to kind of like after 30 years in hospitality, just become an entrepreneur within the same industry?
Sure. Great question. It's funny, I use this one quote a lot about why I got into hospitality. And I grew up in the Middle East, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And there's a quote there that goes something like, when a stranger shows up at your door, feed him for 3 days before you ask him who he is, where he's from, and where he's going to. because by then he'll either have the strength to answer or you'll be such good friends it won't matter. And truly, hospitality at its core. And by the way, when I say that quote, I say, I just saved you $500,000 in a Cornell education. Here's your master's degree in hospitality. Our industry is such a simple industry. If you truly realize that at the end of the day, the only job you have, the singular only job you have, is to make someone feel at home when they come to your hotel. That's it. It's not about the Instagrammable moment. It's not about the art. It's not about the design. Those are all elements of what makes a holistic experience. But if you don't successfully push that emotional button that you have arrived, you're home, welcome, if you don't feel like you've been given a massive hug when you walk into a hotel, we failed miserably. Because hotels at their core are a very fundamental, basic offering. If you know Maslow's hierarchy of need, at the very bottom of Maslow's pyramid is shelter, basically, which is the most basic human need. And hotels provide the most basic human need. And if that's the game we're in, we're going to lose because that is a commodity. I equate it to gasoline, petrol. When I go to buy petrol for my car, I don't care what brand it is, what the logo looks like, what the gas station looks like. It's a price and location equation. If it's the right price at the right location, I'm buying it. And to some extent, if you think of hotels as a commodity, that becomes the only gauge someone will choose a hotel by, location and price. And in that game, everyone loses because ultimately that is not what I want in a hotel. So I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Damascus, Syria. Syria was a French colony for a long time, so a lot of our systems were sort of French, but it never lost its sense of hospitality. And if you think Damascus was on the Silk Road, and there's a joke that the oldest industry is that industry where you pay for some pleasures, but arguably the oldest industry I think is hospitality because you think about all people traveling and moving all around, they needed places to stop and rest. And if you're on the Silk Road, naturally there's a lot of people coming and going. So I think of if you really take the Silk Road, I think hospitality is integral to that Silk Road. But interestingly, growing up, I tell people I literally cannot remember a single meal that I ate alone with my family. There was always like people coming and going, and you show up home, you're like, who are you and why are you here? Great, come join us for dinner, come join us for food. And the Mediterranean basin is pretty well known for sort of its cultures gathering around food. You think of Scandinavia and Northern Europe, you don't get that same sensibility you get in the
We just eat
Mediterranean
to
basin.
survive.
Yeah, exactly. Food brings people together. So I think fundamentally this idea of having grown in a culture not unique to the Middle East or my culture, I think Spain and France and Greece certainly share that culture with us. Growing in a place where food is such an integral part of what you do, cooking food is a celebration. It's not a chore. I mean, I remember my aunts and my mom's friends and people are in the kitchen running around for 3 days preparing meals. I think that's the essence of hospitality, and that's really what created this desire in me to create transcendent experiences for people when they come in. When you come into a restaurant these days, you kind of want to feel like you're in your mom's kitchen with grandma and everyone running around and cooking. This whole idea of open kitchens and all that, think about it. It's really a function of making you feel like you are at home. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It's an easy decision. I funny when I go with my wife, we get invited to a party, even someone strange that's not a friend. I go to the party. My wife hates going to parties with me because I inevitably will start walking around and say, "Hey, can I get you a drink? Do you need anything?" And she'll say, "What are you doing? It's you don't even know the host that well.
You're
Why are
not
you
even the
taking
host.
over? Why are you taking over?" She says, and I truly say I cannot help it. I mean, I'm the guy who in New York City, when I get on an elevator, I hold the door open for people to come through. And in New York, people look at me and they're like, "What the? Who are you? Why are you holding the door?" So it's funny. I say hospitality is either in you or it's not. Now, I believe we all have it in us, but it's either it comes naturally to you or it doesn't. And if it does, it is the best. It's not a job, it's a passion because you're doing what you love to do. I say I'm the host of the soiree. So I think my upbringing, being in a society that is very social, that really celebrates people getting together. Like I said, I don't remember eating a meal alone. I think that really has shaped my thinking about what hospitality is and should be, not what it's become, but rather where it should be.
And that's a good point, because actually hospitality is often benchmarked by other industries, because when it comes to experience, that's the ultimate industry. I mean, it's all about experiences. You know, you've said it many times, and I absolutely agree that a hotel, it's just four walls and a room. Maybe you're gonna stay in London in a 15 square meter bedroom, and you're gonna have the stay of your life. And you might stay in, I don't know, in Dubai, and stay in a 150 square meter villa overlooking the water with your own plunge pool. And that stay, it's not gonna be that memorable. Why? Because of people. You know, you just say it many times, but it's true. And for me, being like, having spent like almost a decade in the hospitality sector, I still feel that it's within me. Even when I moved to to a financial company, it was still within me. I'm also the one who holds the elevator door. Guilty. So
good manners, but it's interesting. I say, look, when you talk about experiential economy, we keep talking about that, and people throw these terms around. They really don't know what they mean at the end of the day. When you go to a hotel, to your point, whether you spend $50 a night on the room or $5,000 a night on the room, maybe you steal a towel, but what do you bring home with you? You don't bring anything. Like, if you spend $5,000, you go to a store, you buy a watch, you have that watch forever. You look at it every day. The value proposition is easy to ascertain because you have an object in your hand that's with you forever, right?
Yes, tangible.
You go to a hotel, again, maybe you steal a towel, but you really don't have anything to bring home with you. And the proposition of value becomes really complicated. How do I convince you that spending $5,000 a night in this hotel is a good value for your money? And I say I only can accomplish that if you feel A, that you've arrived your home, and B, you go home and you tell your spouse, your partner, you will not believe this place I stayed at. Let me tell you what happened. And I submit to you that almost 100% of the time, the reason you go back and tell your partner, your spouse, your friend about a hotel, it's because of an interaction you had with a person, not an object. Because listen, we all go to a museum, we stand in front of a painting or a sculpture, and I could stand there for 5 hours and it moves me and it touches me but it's a sterile, static object. It has no feelings. What you're feeling with a painting, by the way, interestingly enough, what you're feeling is you are now going through the painting into the artist's heart and brain and soul. You're connecting with the artist, not with the object, the painting. So in a hotel, I appreciate design, I appreciate art, but ultimately it's all static objects. So by the way, out of my many hotels that I stay in, people say, what stands out? What do you remember? And my quote is, I only remember when someone goes out of their way and genuinely gives a shit. It is a very low bar. I want you to, I want you to acknowledge me, the human, not throw things at me, not give me stuff and things and art and design and all that stuff, because all that stuff is fleeting. And sadly, what once was unique, good art in a hotel, has become common. Every hotel has good art. And I make fun of restaurants that say farm to table. I say, I expect you to be farm to table. There's no more frozen stuff. Like, that era has passed. So how do you then win a game where everyone has the same tools and the same? I think the only way you win it isn't by object, but it's by attitude and the way you portray your attitude towards those who experience your offering, whatever that might be, retail, hotel, restaurant, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Like that, the uniqueness of the experience you make people feel when they just step into your business. And on that same context, what would you, or how would you define what a positive customer experience is in your businesses? That it would be great if you can elaborate a bit on what you do in the two different businesses. And if that you think could be kind of extrapolated to other sectors, because as we just said, like the hospitality industry is like often benchmarked to other industries, on how to deliver the right customer experience. So just tell me, how would you define a positive customer experience?
A positive customer experience to me is really simple. It's one thing, but I'll add a second to it. It's one thing. If you come back, that's it. I've won. I'm done. And if you come back, not because I'm bribing you with points, or you come back because it's a commodity, good location, good price. if you come back to me because you feel that you belong. I trademarked this term in hospitality recently, longing for belonging. I feel that we humans, forgetting religion and all that for a minute and thinking about us as just animals through evolution, we are packed animals. We need each other. We need to be together, right? To survive. So because the world has sort of separated us and it's cut all these belongings that we had historically in a smaller context of a village or a community, religion is sort of not what it used to be because that was a way for us to come together. You think about political parties that are so polarized and separated right now. So we have a desperate urge to belong. And by the way, I argue that the proliferation of private clubs on some level is giving us this idea that, hey, I belong to this. I belong to Soho House. I'm a member of that community. That is my tribe. I feel that hotels will be successful. That the measure of success is if I make you feel like you belong. Because if you belong, you've now found your tribe, you've found your people, and you're going to come back again and again to your people. But to me, again, like I said, the measure of success is you going home and telling someone about your stay. Because the way I pick hotels now, I'm sure you do the same thing. I call friends I trust and I say, hey, where do you like to go? And if you have to think and a hotel doesn't come to mind in 5 seconds, then that city that
Or
you
was
go
it good
to has
enough?
failed. Exactly. They failed miserably. That's the measure of success because in a busy world where we are all fighting for eyeballs, the most reliable and trustworthy eyeball to me is a trusted source. And if I can make you become my brand evangelist, do marketing for me for free, I'd be foolish not to figure out how to take advantage of you, my customer, who's walked through my doors, to go tell 20 people about my offering.
The ultimate customer experience is taking a client and making it into an ambassador. That's the ultimate customer experience.
Absolutely.
So turning a customer into an ambassador, I mean, it might take you one stay, it might take you one gesture, or it might take you 10. That depends on the individual, but it's definitely that making that little tweak that you have them for life. Like you can then, mess up and they'll forgive you, once you just.
Let me give you a great example from an adjacent industry, the airline industry. So I am top status on Delta Airlines. I walk up to the gate, and on the upgrade list on the screen, my name is number one on the upgrade list. Sure, I'll take your upgrade. I'm not going to complain. I'm happy to take your upgrade. But because I am close to this, I am cynical about it. I say I'm not excited because Bashar did not get an upgrade. It's a record number 5679 that traveled this many miles and has this status equals receives an upgrade. It is a mathematical formula. Delta Airlines doesn't know who the fuck I am. They don't give a shit who I am. It is a mathematical formula. I get on the plane. I sit in my seat. The flight attendant comes and hands me a card, a handwritten card by the pilot that says, Dear Mr. Wali, thank you so much for continuing to fly with us. You are the reason we fly, and you are the reason we are employed and feed our families. Oh my
Wow.
God. Like I'm
Wow.
about to cry. I'm about to
That
cry.
went straight to your heart.
Right? So now, by the way, that card could have come to me sitting in a middle seat in the back, and I am king of the world. You know why? Because I am now recognized as an individual. And going back to Maslow's hierarchy of need, at the very top of Maslow's hierarchy, you said at the bottom is shelter, water, food, etc. But at the very top is self-actualization and transcendence. And to me, self-actualization is being recognized as me, right? Not a traveler, not a passenger, not a guest, not a human, not of any of the stuff that I share with everyone else. Because we all want to be valued for us, right? Not for our business card, not for how many miles we've flown, not for the color of our skin, not for the political party. Recognize me for me. And I think hotels have gone so far to the opposite direction. They want to win by throwing objects at you. And they've forgotten the most basic part. And I can tell you stories about hotels and how they've accomplished that. But it truly is that simple. Listen, whatever business you're in, and I've said that, and you said it in your opening. Whatever business you're in, think about the power of recognizing me, your client, as a person. Send me a birthday card on my birthday, handwritten, not some system generated card. Because then what I say is, she cares about me. She's done this much work to find out something about me. I now matter. I'm somebody. I'm not just an account that sends her business. I am a human being. I'm a person that matters. And that concept to me is so lost on our society broadly in every way. And those who get it right, I believe, truly understand the concept of loyalty versus, our business talks about loyalty a lot. You come stay at my hotel, I give you points. That's not loyalty, that's bribery.
It's
I am
bribing.
bribing you. I am bribing you to come to my hotel. But if you come despite that, then that to me is loyalty. So
Something that you mentioned in previous interviews is, and something that I couldn't agree more, and I get tired of just repeating it, is that emotional intelligence is so underrated nowadays. Like empathy. Like you can go to the bar on the corner just to have a coffee, to have a beer, or going to the most luxurious hotel in the world that they might have like SOPs and standard procedures and checklists and whatever you want to call it. But sometimes the little things that they're missing are empathy. Just that, and this is the main reason why I decided to just put this podcast walking in their shoes. Because it's what it's all about, no matter what industry, B2C, B2B, hospitality, tech, retail, doesn't matter. That's what really, connects you with people. So, from your perspective, I would like to understand what are the factors that have the greatest impact in a customer experience?
so it's funny, I think for someone who went to school for this, spent a lot of time and money, waste of money, don't go to hotel school. No offense. I know your husband did too. So did you go to hotel school?
No.
Okay, good. Smart, very smart. Because our industry is at its very core is really, really simple. And I always say the two things I always look for in a candidate at any level, right? Number one is common sense, which is very, very uncommon, very uncommon. And number two is emotional intelligence. And the way I describe emotional intelligence to sort of distill that whole concept, which seems nebulous, I show up to a hotel. My last name is 4 letters. I have my credit card and my license in my hand. I'm literally like Superman. I'm stretched like this as I'm walking up to the desk. And I walk up to the desk and someone looks at me and says, checking in. And I'm literally ready to jump off the roof going, what do you actually think I could possibly be doing as I'm spelling my name for you? It's 11 p.m. I'm there for one night. I'm leaving the next morning. And this person, because the checklist and the SOP told them to do it, is telling me about the spa, telling me about the brunch, which happens on Sunday. I'm there on Wednesday, leaving on Thursday. And they're going off in this robotic manner, telling me everything they're supposed to tell me. I generally make fun of my friends at Ritz-Carlton because they had this Credo card for any of you who knows the business. And this Credo card was in everyone's pocket and you had to memorize it. And it started with, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And I agree with the concept of it, but I don't agree with this idea of memorizing things. Because in that example that I'm giving you, hand me my key. Don't tell me about the spa. Don't tell me about anything. Don't tell me where the elevator is. You could tell I'm a road warrior, as it were. I know I could hear the elevator dinging. Don't tell me where it is. You show up, you're fumbling through your bag, looking for your credit card. You're complaining about your flight. Stuff is falling everywhere. Your hair is all puffy. Clearly, this person has had a rough day and wants to be acknowledged. So in that case, engage with that person. So the hardest thing we do as an industry is how do I teach you that? Because that's not training, that's not memorization, that's none of that. That's emotional intelligence. In fact, there's a hospitality school in the US. I'm working with the dean of that school on figuring out if we can together come up with a scientific way that can test your aptitude for emotional intelligence before I hire you. Because I am a believer that, again, back to our industry. Our industry, no offense, literally I can train a monkey how to check you in. It's not that hard. It is not that hard. But emotional intelligence is much harder. And I believe some people have everyone has it at different levels. Some people have high levels of it. Some people don't have high levels of it. I want to always be biased and hire people that have high levels of emotional intelligence because I can't teach you it. I can refine it. I can help you express it better, but I can't implant it in you.
Absolutely.
And we haven't figured out that science yet. But our industry, if you figure out that emotional intelligence truly is the singular most important attribute of anyone that works in our industry at any level, you win. And by the way, people forget that in the heart of the house, The chef who may not engage with any customers directly, he or she are still engaging with their coworkers and their employees. And emotional intelligence is equally important there.
And that will ultimately reflect on the experience of the customer. Absolutely. Something that actually it's a big statement on my LinkedIn profile, and it says attitude over skills. And this is also always going back to skills can be trained. Like you just said, you can teach a monkey how to serve a coffee, exactly. But that ability to read people, to have that empathy, when someone is having a rough day, to read them, to understand these people doesn't want to talk, this person needs a cuddle, not physical, but needs to talk, needs to vent. So just that, not skill, attribute, as you said, is key for any interaction in hospitality and in any industry.
Any industry, absolutely. You could be a web developer and emotional intelligence is important. Absolutely. And really a keynote is when unless you're flying on a G650 and you have a helicopter Succession-like, and you have a helicopter bringing you to your hotel, travel these days is a rough thing. You have to leave your dignity at home. So you think about this for a minute. You get up in the morning at the crack of dawn. You're stepping on your kids' toys. You're trying to not make noise to annoy your spouse. You get in the Uber with the guy who doesn't like to shower, who likes to talk a lot at 4 o'clock in the morning. You get to the airport. You're getting pushed through security like cattle. You sit on a seat and someone is kicking you from behind. You repeat the same thing. By the time you arrive at my front door at the hotel, the bar is so low. I don't have to be the most incredible service provider in the world to impress you. The bar is so low. I just need to acknowledge you. And what do? We keep looking down. We look up. We're like checking in. Like, think about how low the bar is. Welcome. By the way, I love these sort of quotes. Another trademark I've just done is for my management company is anyone can take your luggage. We handle your baggage.
Wow.
So the idea is you arrive. We got you. You're home. Forget about your worries. You're here. Relax, unwind. You've arrived. And accomplishing that is not that hard because of what I said. The bar is so low. You don't have to be that good to make a difference, yet we fail miserably every time.
Actually, and funny enough, yesterday we did a training session with a local client and talking about luggage, something that it sometimes little things make the difference. Like we went through the pre-stay, like the booking process, the pre-stay, the stay, and the post-stay. And when we're talking about the stay, and I said, guys, when a client arrives, what are the processes? No, we welcome them at the door. We say if they need any help with the luggage, blah blah blah. And I said, wait, stop there a minute. What if you say, rather than can I help you with your bags, you just say, let me help you with your bags. It makes a difference. These little things really make a difference. It's not that I'm offering you help, it's that I'm saying I'm going to help you, and the same with so many other things that you can anticipate.
There is a business here, a tire business for your cars. Tire. It's such a commodity. It's not exciting. Lots of tire stores. This one particular store here in the northwest of the US, when your car is pulling up to them, their thing is they run, literally physically run from inside the store to the outside to approach you at your window to ask you, welcome, what can we do for you? Yeah, park here, let me show you. They bring you in. And that singular thing they've done has made them incredibly successful, incredibly popular, because I'm running to you. Think about that. I'm not waiting for you. I'm not sitting on my phone on TikTok waiting for you to show up. I am running to you. And it's a tire store.
Love it.
Think about how easy it is for hotels to really, to your point, don't ask me, don't offer me. Like, my luggage should have arrived and I should be like, how did my luggage arrive? I didn't even see it arrive. Some hotels use a lot of those tricks. They'll read your name from the luggage badge and they'll tell the front desk you're coming so that they know who you are. They come around.
Nice. Of course, I'm into that.
We have a store here, a retail store called Nordstrom's. I'm sure you probably are familiar. And one of their key things is when you're done with your transaction and they've rang up your order on the register, they don't hand you the bag over the register. They come around, right? They have to come around the counter because this object in the middle that separates you. So a lot of this is psychology And lots of places use like grocery stores, the things you see on the eye level shelf, that's psychology. It's there on purpose. It's not there by accident. Yet we hotels deal with such, like I said, a product that you don't take home with you, right? It's a feeling you take home with you. Yet we fail to use basic human psychology to use to our advantage. This idea of you're in a strange place, in a strange town, you don't speak the language, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, remember what I said earlier? I only remember when someone goes out of their way and genuinely gives a shit. The bar is really low. And when I say that, not every problem a guest has can be solved because some guests are ridiculous with their asks. You can never please them. But if you can pretend enough to convince me that you care about me and at least you're trying, that's the bar. So people say, well, listen, we can't give everyone an upgrade and check them in early, check them out late. And, again, you live in Europe, and for us Americans, we fly to Europe, we show up at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting in the back of the bus, we've had a horrible day.
Lovely overnight flights, the red-eye flights.
A kid is kicking us all the entire flight with not sleep a wink. You cannot give every single person who show up a room early. It's not ready. But there's one, the room is not ready. It'll be ready at 4 o'clock. There's that, or there's, I'm so sorry, the room is not ready. As you know, checkout time is at 11. But by the way, we have a fitness center down the hall. I'll take your bags and store them. You go get refreshed and ready. There's towels in there. Here's a cup of coffee. It costs you nothing. And now that guest is not only not annoyed, which should be our goal, but extremely happy with you. So it's all about attitude. Now, in fairness to operators, our industry is a revolving door, as you know. People that come at the front line come and go. And people talk a lot, and this is a really important piece. People talk about a lot about training. To me, emotional intelligence is not training. It's an attitude. It's an ethos. It's a way of life. So it doesn't matter whether you know the technical skills or not, but when you walk into my place, I want you to understand that that is our family code of ethics, essentially. That's how we treat each other. And I think a lot of it comes from how you treat your employees and how they treat each other. So back to what I was saying, the guy in the back of the house who's interacting with his or her co-workers, how they do that affects how they deal with the folks up front. So often hotels ignore what happens behind the scenes because they think it's separated and people don't see it. There's this wall that separates it, when in fact, I think it's all interconnected. And I'll give you this example. Think about the message you give employees by saying, the guest bathroom in the lobby must be immaculate. I must be able to eat off the floor. It must be that clean. But your bathroom in the back can look like a war zone. I don't care. So what you're telling me is I don't matter. I, the employee, do not matter. And the guest is a better human than I am. Terrible message. So how do you expect me then to come out with a happy face on, treating this person like they are royalty while I'm being treated like I'm an animal and I don't count? So those are the simple things that I use as examples. But as you know, this is an attitude, an ethos, a way of life. The checklist will have 20,000 items on it to accomplish this thing. This is not a checklist. This really is something you believe in at your core that has to be the ethos of your organization. It's not a checklist. It cannot be a checklist because it changes, right? It changes every day with every customer, with every interaction. It is impossible to capture because then you're saying you're capturing the human psyche in a checklist, and that just doesn't work.
Exactly. That's something that is not possible to just put on a checklist. And actually, we'll go to later now in our chat into how do you kind of like inspire your teams in being the best of themselves in order to provide the best service. But we'll get there. Something that I wanted to share first is something that me myself as an entrepreneur and many of the entrepreneurs I've we had in the podcast, we share that sometimes, and especially when you start, you kind of like when you take off, when you start running a business, you think or you convince yourself that you need to fit every customer. You need to just, like your target audience is the world, and if it takes time and mistakes and like reflection on understanding that you're not for everyone, and that's okay, and in that sense, I think that understanding your target audience, what is their profile, what are their concerns, their aspirations, their interests, it will really help you providing the best service to them, product, service, whatever it is that you're selling. So, on that same context, and same perspective, what do you think that are kind of the steps to better understand the customer needs and expectations in your businesses?
Travel has become the new social currency. Back in the day, if you're sort of an up and coming person, society, economy, you showed up in your fancy watch and you were showing off your watch and your fancy Brioni suit and you drove your Rolls Royce up or whatever. And it's amazing how the world has shifted now. Think about it. Like the minute you meet someone, like within seconds, they're telling you about where they've been and where they've traveled and what they're looking to do, because that's become this experience of travel has become our social currency. It's our street cred. It's what we brag about. And I think hotels sit in the center of that shift in society as to what's important, because we as society now value experiences over things. It seems to be the new thing, and it seems like it's here to stay. And people, by the way, will forego important purchases in their lives that they should be making to go on travel, which music to my ears. The idea of customer profiles, to your point, like I run in the 4-star space, right? I don't touch the 5-star space. But to me, I talk about hotel ratings, by the way, and I say there's only two kinds of hotels. Forget the stars, forget the diamonds, forget all that junk. There's two kinds of hotels: memorable and forgettable. And if you agree with my proposition that you only become memorable because of an interaction with someone, not something, an interaction with someone, then it doesn't matter what level you're at to become memorable. I've stayed in Burj Al Arab in Dubai, forgettable. I've stayed at hostels and shared a room with people and shared a bathroom with people that I think is memorable. So I think, again, unless you're here and that's all you'll play in the luxury space, fine, you can have it. I think most travelers today, including luxury travelers, are really looking for those unique, interesting experiences. Now, interestingly enough, think about back in the day. Flat screen TV, Wi-Fi, good mattress, good food. All those have become table stakes. You cannot not
Transaction.
have a good
Yeah,
you
just
cannot not have a good mattress. Literally, the 2-star hotel here now in the US, and I know internationally, has almost the same mattress as the 5-star hotel. That's no longer a unique offering. Wi-Fi, not a unique offering anymore. So if we've taken all the things that have made us different and we all have them now. Now, of course, if I am a Ritz-Carlton, I have a 600 square foot, 700 square foot room. I have a 5 fixture bathroom. I have this, I have that, the other. I'm not taking any of that home with me. And for your average traveler, they don't care. I want a clean, bright, well laid out, functioning room with high design and high art. And by the way, high art could be graffiti. It doesn't have to be Picasso's and Renoirs. It literally could be graffiti, as long as it's thoughtful and intentional. So I say that the playing field has been leveled by virtue of all these things that once were aspirational have become a commodity.
yeah,
So the
transaction.
only exactly. So the only way back to how you win is how you treat those people that walk in your door and how you create memorable experiences for them. So again, back to your audience, I say if I'm a 4-star hotel, if I get a 5-star customer, they should be as easy to please as they are as the 4-star customer. They're not any different to me. And the 2-star customer who may come to me should also be treated the same way. It doesn't matter. So the 2-star customer, when they come to my 4-star offering, will be pleasantly surprised, right? It's an upgrade for them. But the 5-star customer who comes to me may not love the size of the room because they're used to bigger rooms. But hopefully, I will make the size of the room irrelevant because I've given them that hug when they've arrived. Better, arguably better than what they get at the snooty, I have a butler outside your door, who cares? I use this example, by the way. You and your husband and your daughter are checking in at, I don't know, Best Western, one of the sort of lowest hotel brands here in the US in terms of star rating, etc. And I'm standing at the desk, I'm checking you in. I overhear that you guys mentioned it's your daughter's birthday, right? I'm just an hourly employee. You go up to your room, I go to the vending machine, I buy a candy bar for $1 and write a handwritten note on a sticky note that says happy birthday and deliver it to your room. Let's say for a minute that you were a Ritz-Carlton customer and you had to stay at that hotel because your flight was canceled and that was the only hotel available. I promise you, that experience will be more memorable for you than any fabulous hotel you've stayed at before. So to me, service Service is not the same as services. Services is we have a spa and we have five fixture bath, etc. Service is an attitude. And if hotels manage to hit that button, then everybody's their customer, right? But to your earlier point, I use this example a lot between independent hotels and branded hotels. If your only goal in life is to collect points, and I don't blame you for it, and those points are going to help you take your family on a vacation using those points because you can't afford to do it. No matter what I do, no matter what my offering is, if I don't have those points, you're not coming to me. And you will sacrifice the quality of the offering. If Hotel A and Hotel B were right next door to each other, and Hotel A was better, cleaner, higher design, checked, and less expensive, but no points, you're going to take the points hotel. That's not as good. So I say to some people, that's not your customer. Don't try to get them. They're not coming. So for me, understanding who your customer is, I think you cannot be everything to everyone, to your point, because then you're nothing. The word authenticity is one of the most overused words out there ever, I think, today. And people don't know what it means anymore. Authenticity to me is an unapologetic point of view. So whatever you have to have a point of view, and whatever that is, be unapologetic about it. Celebrate it. Now you can't alienate people. Your funnel can't be this big, but your funnel shouldn't be this big either. So I think to your point, understanding your customer becomes really important and what's important to them and how your offering fulfills that. But if you're really, really successful, everyone is your customer and everyone will love you equally. They may not choose you because you don't fit their profile, because some people will go to the web and look for only 5-star hotels, right? So if they may never choose,
give the chance to the 4-star.
they may never choose you, but if they choose you, your job should be that they will leave there pleasantly surprised and tell everyone about it. So don't box yourself in. Don't box yourself in this is my customer and that's the only one I attend to, because the service, the hospitality you're providing, I don't want to use the word service, the hospitality you're providing resonates with the homeless person who may come in and use your bathroom and with the billionaire who may feel like they're stuck staying with you. It's the same human underneath. It's literally the same human underneath. And they care about the same things at the end of the day. Non-shiny objects, they care about the same.
But you'll agree with me that at the same time, the expectations, they care about the same thing, maybe, and probably. But their expectations, as you just said, when someone is used to stay in 5-star hotels, like they are kind of like, even if they do like scripted kind of like behaviors, but they are used to certain standards, like service standards. If they go to a 4-star, their expectations will still be the 5-star expectations going to a 4-star. So it will be, let's say, a bit more difficult to impress them a little bit more because their expectations will probably not go down.
But remember, service or services.
Absolutely.
Think about it. Services. Sure, they want 24-hour room service and they want this and they want valet 24 hours and they want to send you their shoes to be shined in the middle of the night because you have someone on. Those are services, not service. Service is someone standing at the front desk checking you in. I argue that the person standing at the Best Western isn't any different than the person standing at the Four Seasons. And by the way, at least in the US, they're getting paid the same thing. So it's not a pay issue. It's just, if you're not proud of the place you work at, it shows in your attitude. And people argue, well, I'm proud to work at the Four Seasons. I'm not proud to work at the Best Western. But why should you not be? It's the McDonald's versus the Michelin-starred restaurant. If you create an environment that celebrates their employees and makes them proud of the place they work at, I think the service should be the same. The services can be different.
That's the ultimate landscape, for an employee to shine. I mean, and you make difference between service and services. I make difference, like together with like the team at Thinking Luxury, between service and experience. The service can be great. I could tell you stories and knowing stories about going to a place and just getting out of there and saying, the service was great, Again, like they follow a checklist. They, they know the product. They know everything you ask them. They know they will even kind of anticipate some of your needs. Blah 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 blah. But then you walk out and you're like, as you said, is it memorable or forgettable? It's totally forgettable.
Let me tell you an actual example that I think will be accretive for anyone in the hotel industry. So as you know, hotels do this mystery shop service, right? So we send someone in, they have a checklist, and they go down the list. When you checked in, did they use your name? Did they offer you luggage service? Did they? And you have this checklist. And at the end of the checklist, you have a score. And I say, listen, I could get 100% on that checklist and be the most miserable human you ever met because it is very transactional. Action and results, very transactional. So I said, you know what? This is a failed way to measure success. So what we decided to do is we do them, we do it. It's important to make sure that people are following the rules, as it were, that you need to make sure there's continuity of quality. So then now we do an emotional based service mystery shop. So we do a transactional base, 1 quarter, then we'll do a emotional base. And the emotional base will say, when you checked in, how did they make you feel? There's no, did they use your name? Did they offer you luggage service?
What are the answers? What will do you give like a multiple choice, or they just write what they feel, or what? How?
That's exactly right. They write how they feel. So now you say, if they fail the transactional, but ace the emotional, bad, and vice versa is bad. You want a balance, right? Because it can't be a free for all. You're running a business. They have to make sure they get the whatever they need to get, whether it's a signature, a credit card, confirm the checkout date, whatever it may be. But fundamentally, what matters is the emotional. And again, I could ace the transactional and be miserable. What have I accomplished? Right? I've checked the box on all the services you expect, but I didn't touch your soul. I didn't push that transcendence button on Maslow's hierarchy of need. I've given you all the basics, but I didn't touch that button. And when you do both, it truly changes your perspective on how you're performing. Because I've been to lots of fancy hotels where I've paid stupid amounts of money, and I'm like, these people are a bunch of jerks. Like they almost don't want me here, right? And it's funny how, and you've worked in hotels, I've worked in hotels, like we judge you by the quality of your luggage. And the world has changed so much today. And you know what's happening now? The person who shows up who you think is the poorest person typically is the richest person.
Well, yes.
Right? So again, this idea of transactional, we have to remove transactional out of our vocabulary in hotels because that is not the business. When I go to the doctor, by the way, even the doctor, I still want an emotional connection, like I'm in a vulnerable state. Of course, I don't want you to miss any steps in my diagnosis, right? But make me feel comfortable, make me feel warm.
We all look for like emotional connections, like for personal connections, like you've just given a very, very clear example, like doctors, like you want to go to a doctor that he's good, has a good reputation, will give you the right diagnosis. That's again the transactional part, because of his academic career, he needs to have a certain knowledge. But again, he can be the best academical, doctor. But if that person does not connect with his patients, I'd rather go to another one that it's not maybe academically as good as this one, but will connect much more with me. It will be much more empathetic.
You just made my case about the 5-star, 4-star. I don't want to go to a 2-star, right? Like I don't want to go to a 2-star doctor who get their degree online from some university I've never heard of, but I'll take the 4-star with soul over the 5-star that's cold and transactional. Absolutely. So you literally just made the case for I always say I'm in the 4-star business that pretends to be 5-star by attitude, not by physical body, right? I don't want the most beautiful person on the planet who has no personality. I'll take the less attractive person who's full of life and full of personality to spend time with. Because the idea of beauty fades, right? Like you stand in front of a painting, like I said, or you walk into a building, it's beautiful, you're ooh, and then you stop, and then it kind of goes away. But this human thing is ever evolving, and it changes so much based on your mood and the conversation and what's happening in your surroundings and the weather and the sunshine. But the building doesn't change. To your earlier point, it's brick and mortar, it's there, it's static. By the way, I use this analogy a lot. I love this analogy. People say, what business are you in? I say, I'm in the theater business. And here's the analogy. I can go to Times Square in New York, buy the most amazing piece of real estate, build a theater that costs $5 billion, dripping with gold, platinum, hand-carved art, all of that stuff. Have a mediocre story and mediocre actors, and no one will care. I can go 10 blocks off Times Square, buy a good enough building, focus all my time and energy on writing an incredible story, hiring, training, and retaining incredible staff artist, cast, etc. Building a set that's accretive to me telling my story. And by the way, the set could be made from platinum and gold because that's what the story needs, or it could be made out of garbage cans and found objects. And the world will be lined around the corner talking about my offering. People don't go to the theater to admire the building. A beautiful building is accretive to the theater experience, but that is not what you go to the theater for. You go to the theater for the story. And theater, by the way, is very similar to our business because when you leave, you have nothing. You took nothing with you except that feeling that invoked you. So if you really think that we are in the theater business, and I've written a piece about this, that every day we're putting on this show, and our goal is for whoever comes attends our show, they go home feeling a certain way, and they tell their friends about the show they attended, they've succeeded. Because again, we are selling nothing but an experience. That's all we're selling.
Bashar, now I want you to tell me, because we've been talking till now, it's been like the ideal customer experience. But sometimes, unfortunately, due to operational mistakes, some things that are they're out of your reach, like the guest experience doesn't go as planned and the guest is not happy. So share with me an example maybe of your journey with Provenance, maybe on your years, like at the core, like operational client facing period, where you faced a client that was really unsatisfied with the experience and how you handled that. Tell us a bit about that specific scenario.
I personally believe that a positive review is good. You stay, you have a great experience, you go tell the world on TripAdvisor, on Google that you had a great experience. That's great. But I also believe that a negative experience that was handled well is exponentially better than just a positive review. You're absolutely right. No one is perfect. I screw up. Our team screw up all the time. We screw up all the time. Sometimes it's our fault. We are human. Sometimes it's out of our control, but it happens. But the guest recovery to me is the most important part. And we now, again, as an industry, have become accustomed to throwing things at you. Here's a free room, here's some points, here's whatever. But we never acknowledge our failure. And I'm going to go kind of left field on you here and talk about this idea of vulnerability. And the pandemic really showed us a lot about vulnerability. Leaders generally think vulnerability is weakness. I argue vulnerability is strength.
Society, not even leaders, society in general.
Exactly. Vulnerability is strength. During the pandemic, everyone is confused and they all come to you, the leader, looking for answers. And again, we all want to be smart and say we have all the answers. We don't. Saying, listen, team, I have no idea. I've never been through this before. This is new territory for me. We are going to figure it out together. It's far more powerful than me inventing some answer that I know what I'm talking about. So I feel that when it comes to guests' issues, and they happen often, the best path I've found is pick up the damn phone. Don't email them. Don't have an argument online with them. Pick up the damn phone and say, listen, we have screwed up. I am sincerely sorry. There's nothing I can tell you. There are no excuses I can make. I can tell you the 1,000 reasons why this happened, but it is our fault. We screwed up. What can I do to make it better? That's the easiest way to fix the problem. And often, you know what? Often I hear and I call, right? Like I want someone, because people want to know that this has gotten to the top. Often they'll say, I don't want anything. I just want you to acknowledge that it's kind of like marriage, right? You know, if we men at least only admitted that we screwed up, the problem will be over. But we are so stubborn. We will not admit that we screwed up. And if we just admitted that we screwed up, it's done. It's over. So I honestly think that the only and best way to solve guest issues is to own them, recognize them, apologize for them, and let the guests tell you what they want. And sure, some will be unreasonable and they'll want an entire year of free stay. And 99% of the time, I've found that you can easily fix the issue. Now, I also use this analogy. Out of 100 people that walk into your door a day, 99 are honest, nice people. One is a complete jerk who's looking to screw you. So I tell my people, you can either stand at the front desk with your boxing gloves on and suit and armor to try to protect yourself from the one to the detriment of the 99, because now you're standoffish for the 99, Or you can stand there with open arms, greet the 99, and that one that's going to screw you is going to do it anyway, right? You can say no, you can try to protect yourself. They'll go write a letter, they'll go to your boss's boss, they'll come to me. And by the time they come to me, I'm like, listen, my time has more value than this, whatever, here you go, right? So ultimately, I'm not suggesting that you should let any random person walking off the street rob you, basically, but I'm suggesting that from an attitude perspective, people take these things so personally. Don't accept the fact that 99% of the people are nice, honest people, and let the one be the one, and it's the cost of doing business. Because I fear that the alternative makes it so unappealing to the 99 that you're doing yourself such harm that it doesn't make sense. But the short answer to your question that I'm not dodging is, and I can give you example after example where we screwed up, pick up the phone, talk to the person, own the problem, apologize for it, ask them what they want. I recently, literally, someone checked into one of our hotels. He's in a room and someone walked in on him. Should not happen. Inexcusable, right? But as you know, it happens in hotels. Sometimes human
And more
error,
often than we think.
sometimes human error, sometimes system error. It happens. It shouldn't happen. Picked up the phone, called him. I said, listen, I wish I could come up with an excuse to give you. I can't. We screwed up. Here I am owning it. I am sincerely sorry. What can I do to fix it? And we fixed it, and he's happy. He's totally happy. That wasn't happy with it. But what happens, right, when he's there, people are standoffish. They don't want to talk about it. They want to come up with excuses. They want to tell him all the reasons why. Is let me go get the manager from the back. It's just a miserable experience. Again, that 1%, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. Let them. Don't let them be the reason you treat the 99% differently.
Something that I took from my days with the Ritz-Carlton, it's two things about kind of like, I don't like to say it problem solving because they were calling it opportunities, not problems. But there's two things. One, and I think that make the difference when you deal with a complaint, is first ownership. So you are the person that guest is coming to complain. And it might be something that has nothing to do with you, even your team, but it has to do with your organization, you know? So a lot of people, they try to push the problem and just blame someone in their team. Ownership sometimes is what clients wants to hear, you know, just say, oh, no, but I'm really sorry, but it wasn't my fault that your omelette today, like, reached the room when it was cold, you know, like, it's the room service fault. It's not you know, like, ownership is one. And something really simple that makes a difference, as you just say, you know, like as a marriage, is after you've kind of like solved the problem, if solvable, is thanking that client for bringing you that problem or that an efficiency, so you can work on it so it will not happen again. Those little things make a massive difference, and this is how you turn an unhappy client to a fully engaged client.
Absolutely. And by the way, we get offended again. When someone is telling you something is broken, you should thank them. They're pointing it out for you so it doesn't happen again and again. And by the way, again, back to my point about, I would much rather have that person who complained go back and write, oh my God, the guy called me, they took good care of me, amazing place. That to me is so much more valuable than any positive comment. So celebrate the bad, act upon it, celebrate it, because it's good for you in the long run. Because if I go somewhere and every review is positive, are those fake reviews? Because no one is perfect. No one is perfect.
Bashar, let's talk now about feedback. So let's say that your clients are out of the door, they're gone, they're back home. In both of your businesses, because they're quite different. One is the hotel management, the other one is kind of a different kind of concept. But how do you gather feedback? How do you know? Because nowadays, like this kind of like email once you're back home, how is your experience? Could you just run through this little survey? Like the response rate for this service is less than 10% globally. So I mean, it's time consuming for the customer, and does it give you anything in return as a customer? Unless you're very mad because you had something that went wrong that you really want to kind of like, you know, make a statement. Probably people who had like an average stay or had a really good stay, they will not take the time. So how do you gather feedback, having that into consideration?
Great question. And you're right that we normally only hear if it's incredibly beautiful or incredibly terrible. Like all that middle is gone, and that's where most of the people are. And they're sort of in that middle. It's either good enough, okay,
Average.
good enough,
Average.
average. Yeah, people, which is terrible, by the way. I hate average. Average is never good. Um, we do the mystery shops, which is sort of indirect guest feedback, right? Because they're guests actually, but their job is to tell you what there is. Um, I feel that social media has now created an indirect way for us to see what people are celebrating and enjoying. So we pay a lot of attention to a lot of the social media channels because they're honest in a way. Generally, they tend, again, they fall in the really good or really bad category, obviously, right? Because they either want to make fun of something stupid that they saw or they want to celebrate something amazing that they saw. There's not a single magic answer to that question. It's really hard. I mean, think about it as yourself, as consumers. Everywhere I go to the bathroom at the airport and they want me to tell them how my experience was. So there's not a magic answer for it, but I think the best indicator of what's happening is really talking to your folks on the ground, to your teammates on the ground, to sort of they're seeing it firsthand and they're realizing. And if you give them the opportunity to share with you what their thoughts about it is and what they think, rather than here's how you check someone and go do it, let them tell you, listen, every time we ask someone to do this, they seem to get annoyed. Why are we asking them to give us their license? Is there an actual reason for it? Can we avoid it? So technology has given us, especially in the post-pandemic world during the pandemic, we are leaned into technology as a way to avoid infection and contact. But technology has now given us the ability to remove the friction out of a stay. Like, why are you asking? I mean, I go on Instagram, right? And within a minute, I see this lamp that I love. And at 2 clicks, the lamp is on its way to me. I go to a hotel and they're asking me to put in my zip code and they're asking me to give them, my postal code and my passport and all of that. So I think we're starting to see the friction removed out of the experience using technology to allow us to engage more with customers and ask them. There's a great hotel, the Four Seasons in Boston, Massachusetts. First time I heard this. On the way out, as you're checking out, and people don't check out anymore, so you're losing that touch point also. They say, how is your stay? And the person will say, great. And they'll say, is there anything we could have done to make it better? So even though it's great, what could we have done to make it better? And I love that question because it didn't just say thank you, right? Great, move on. There's always ways to improve.
That
So
learning, like that constant learning and improvement, that's
I
essential for any business.
I think the only way you're going to get feedback is by talking to people when they are captive in your building. And I mean, talking to them. Back in the day, at least on stateside, we used to have this program called Lobby Lizard, we'd call them. And we'd ask all the management teams in the hotel to literally be in the lobby during the morning rush hour to be out, and then during the evening check-in hour to be in. And their job was to just sort of touch people, talk to people, engage with people. And that to me was the best way. And it seems like we've gone away from it as an industry. And I think we definitely need to bring it back. But yeah, there's no magic answer to it. You've got to do the organic, let them ask them to preview you. And it's funny with the review preview questions when they said you get the email after you stay, they want to ask you your life story. One question. Will you come back and will you recommend it? That's all you need to know. Because if the answer is no and no, you're in big trouble. Recommend it. Forget come back. Would you recommend this hotel? That's all you need to know. So simplify it. Use social media. Use this touch points with the hotels. I mean, I generally tell general managers, if you're sitting in your office, you should not have an office. Like your job should be to be engaging with the teammates, engaging with the guests, engaging with everyone in your building. You're the host of the soiree, right? You're the party host.
The
You should not
numbers
be
will show. I mean, numbers
hiding.
show.
You should not be hiding in the back. So there's not a magic answer for it. It's a lot of hard work. But if you care about being in the know, on trend, and know what's happening, you better collect it because then you can respond in real time and not wait for some other brand to do it for you to follow lead. You become a leader, not a follower, if you really take the time to collect as much information as possible.
Let me just summarize your three answers. So basically social media, which is great because that's where people like usually is like if they're super engaged, super satisfied or very unsatisfied, but that gives you kind of a rating or an idea of what is the people, like some of the maybe areas or experiences that clients engage the most. That's first. Second is the employee's voice employees' feedback. They're on the floor. They're 24/7, like in shifts, but in front of the client on a daily basis. They can read what's going on and what's happening, constantly. And third, this like in-house, like before checkout feedback, and that also gives you the opportunity that if there is any client that is leaving with kind of something that went wrong, that they'll just like, they don't feel like sharing, maybe if you ask them, you can turn an unsatisfied client again, into an engaged client just right before they're out of your door, So yeah, absolutely. These three things are key.
On that note, by the way, we do a mid-stay email as well. Like while you're there is what's happening, what's going on. And now with the ways you communicate, back to technology, removing friction, everyone is communicating by text with the guest. The best way for me to fix a problem is while you're there and you tell me about it, right? Once you leave, it's too late. So there's this idea also of capitalize on your person that's inside your building and ask them in real time. Again, this from the Ritz days. Back in the day, a lot of us used to, when you checked in the room, we'd give you 5 minutes and we would actually call you and say, is everything okay? Can I do anything? And instead of someone saying, my thermostat is broken after they left and the room was hot, they'll tell you then and you'll send someone to fix it. So there's a lot of simple things we used to do that I feel like we've gotten away from because we've hid behind the pandemic and the short staffing and all that. And I think it's time to bring those basic back to that transactional checklist. Like that to me is an important thing that I want to know you did it, because you have the opportunity to capitalize on a problem that may have happened and take care of it in real time.
Let's go back into the emotional intelligence factor because, as we agreed, I think it's a key component for any experience a client might have in any hotel or any business, actually. I was one of those who memorized, the steps of service, the service standards, and I think that most of, not my success, but my journey in any of the industries that I've been in is because of I've always been trying to understand what I have in the other side of a desk, a table, a phone. And that's something that definitely the hospitality just really wakes up in you. So when we talk about teams, what kind of like abilities, qualities do you look into your team members when you kind of like trying to recruit new people, or when you have them already in the team? What kind of values do you try to kind of like instinct into your team?
Great question. Asian hospitality is second to none. There's nothing like it. Again, the Middle East claims it, the Greeks claim it, everyone tries to claim it, Mexicans claim it here. There's nothing like it. Southeastern Asian hospitality particularly. It is truly in their DNA. They are delighted to serve you. They don't think of it as servitude. We're not servants, but we want to serve you. And I feel that is something you cannot teach. You're kind of born with it. It really is in your blood. And I think hospitality generally is an attitude. You can't be an introvert and deliver good hospitality, right? You have to be an extrovert. So I think I don't care about any of the interview questions, because back to our earlier point, I can teach there are robots. I've stayed in a hotel in Tokyo where a robot checks you in, right? So I look for extroverts. I look for people that are authentic, that are happy to be themselves. And my problem with what you said about memorizing is I am now taking someone who's full of life and personality and sticking them in a box that they may or may not fit in. And those extroverts, when they now have to memorize and say hello the way you want them to say hello,
they are no longer themselves anymore.
Exactly. They're a shell of themselves. So I think authenticity, an unapologetic point of view, I think obviously integrity, to me, that there's again table stakes. You've got to be all of that. But when it comes to personality, it's outgoing, extroverted, authentic, just generally naturally happy, right? Like you've got to exude this sort of welcoming thing. You can't be one of those, standoffish people. And training doesn't solve those. In my opinion, training just does not remove those. Those are things that you've learned over a lifetime. I can't change them with a training program. I can make you memorize things to pretend to be authentic and welcoming, but it's going to come across unreal and kind of come across inauthentic. So it's all nebulous. And again, skill set wise, common sense. I only want you to have common sense. I don't care what degree you have from what school, what experience you've had. Our industry doesn't require a ton of experience. If you're outgoing and friendly and know how to make people feel good, that's the only criteria that matters.
Would you say that lead by example is something that like often like is one of the best ways you can teach people? Like I do it even with our daughters, like I can explain them why something is wrong or why something needs to be done one way or the other. The best thing they can learn is just seeing me how I do it. So the same with leaders, like when you want your teams to behave a certain way, it's training is gonna help because you're maybe gonna teach them some skills or just awake some of their intrinsic values already, like from within. But I think the leading by example is something that it's like
100%. There's nothing more to say about it. If you don't practice what you preach, what's the point? And as I said earlier, how you treat them and how they treat each other is a direct reflection on how they will treat whoever walks through your door. How should I expect you, who's rude to your coworker, to turn around and be nice to the person who walks in front of you all of a sudden? It just doesn't work that way. You need to be in that state of mind where we're all in this together. Again, this sort of tribal idea, we're all here together, we belong together. And when someone walks in, you're welcoming them into your tribe. And obviously starts from the top. If you're not that person, if you walk in and scream and yell and all of that, it's going to reflect in how they treat the people that walk through their door and what they deem to be okay behavior and what's not. So absolutely leading by example. I mean, that's always been from the beginning of humanity, the way to get people to
best way to
follow
teach
you,
people,
believe in you.
inspire
Exactly,
people.
exactly. And again, in the hotel space, we talk about if you're the manager and you walk by a piece of dirt on the floor and don't pick it up, why do you expect the person to pick it up? Like again, it's that simple example, but it's a much more important piece to do it on that interpersonal level.
Before we end up our chat, there is something that I think it would be interesting for our audience to hear is in order to provide consistency in the experiences in the different hotels you manage, in the clients you might have at this assembly, like any kind of like way that you can work on having a consistent experience for all of your clients or customers.
Spend a lot of time talking about styles of learning and styles of communication because I think once you understand how you learn and how you process information and you learn about your coworkers, like that's really the bulk of our training is this idea of learning styles. Because again, the content I need to teach you, so simple. The idea of how do you learn and what is your style, there's the people that need to hear something, go away for a little while, process it and come back. They're the people that want to immediately respond. So we spent time doing that kind of training, which we found to be the best kind of training because then you understand how to deal with your coworkers, your bosses, your subordinates, and you also start to learn and think about how the person across from you, how they might be processing information. Back to my example of I'm handing you my credit card and spelling my name, don't tell me about the spa kind of thing. So we spend a lot of time there. But outside of that, what we do is so unique to the person. Look, we talk a lot about authenticity. I don't want you to be authentic when it comes to accounting. There's only one way to do accounting, numbers, all of that stuff. So that stuff is basic. But any guest interaction, I wish I could tell you there's one common thread between them all, except this idea of treat people with respect and treat people like you want to be treated and even again when there's a problem. And by the way, you asked about the leading by example. I mean, that's where you show truly what you're made of is when you're dealing with someone who has an issue and how you treat them and how you handle them becomes a great teaching moment for those who are learning from you. So not a procedure or a policy or anything that's sort of tactical. It's more nebulous in our case because our business is a business of emotions. This idea of treat everyone with respect, no matter who they are. And ultimately, you can disagree with someone and still treat them with respect.
Yeah, probably what you're saying is more on like the day to day, like your daily actions impact more and have like resonate more than like a training session you might have or something. So it's like the day to day that really contributes to creating. Actually, I was listening to a podcast from Stephen Bartlett interviewing one of the co-founders of Airbnb, and he mentioned something really interesting saying, culture, it's so underrated, you know, like company culture. And it's not that company culture that will just, you know, oblige you to memorize service standards or whatever it is that, you know, you need to know or in order to provide like to complete that checklist. But, you know, it's like that space where like leading by example, where leaders are involved in, and you know, where there's a really like a sense of belonging, of safety, of my voice is heard no matter, you know, where am I. And the so this, I think this is something that really makes a massive difference, and then it definitely impacts in the consistency of service that you deliver on a daily basis to your clients.
Absolutely. Another thing that we did that's been really helpful is, I'm sure you know Simon Sinek and the idea of discovering your why. Everyone wants to tell you what they do, where they do it, how they do it, when they do it, but no one really understands why they do what they do. And everyone jumps to that, well, we do it to make money. No, no, no. You do good work and money comes, but why do you actually do what you do? And he uses Apple as the example. Apple doesn't say we're here to make great phones or have beautiful retail stores or have great whatever. They say we're here to change the world. So I think when you as a company get together and understand your why are you doing what you're doing? Again, beyond money, people always jump to money, right? Always. And again, do good
Good
work and money will
incentive,
come.
but it's not the
Yeah.
main reason
It's
why.
it's a byproduct of what you do. Because there's lots of ways to make money. Why did you choose this? Why are you doing what you do? And I really think as a company, rallying around the idea of discovering your why and really going through the exercise. And the Simon Sinek Institute now does this. We've done it before where they'll send out people out and help you discover what your why. And at the end, it's so simple. It's so basic.
Basic.
You
Basic.
kind of wonder why you paid them all that money to do it, but you need them to get it. But I really think sitting in a room, not just with your leadership team, but with all of your team and figuring out and explaining to them once you understand it, why you do what you do. You're now agreeing to jump on Noah's Ark. You're all in this together, going in the same direction, going to the same place with the same set of values. That to me is gold. It's the most important thing you can do rather than get occupied with the back to our friends at the Ritz, ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. Who cares?
Absolutely. What a takeaway. Just to wrap up, Bashar, we've been through different kind of like phases of your career. You've been in the business for 30 plus years, but only as an entrepreneur since 2020. So I would focus now on those 3 years, those 3 last years. What are some of your messages, takeaways you could share with people that are thinking to start a business, but they are scared? Is it too late for me? Am I lacking experience? Or entrepreneurs that are been running a business for 20 years, but they love to, again, you know, keep growing and getting inspired by other peers.
I think the statistic is the average age of a startup entrepreneur is 40 something. It's not 20 something like we all think. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that start late. So this whole notion that you've got to be 19 and go start Instagram as the definition of entrepreneur is false. But really, if I were to leave you with one of my favorite sort of quotes that I tell everyone, and there's an explicit in there, I'll leave it out. If it doesn't set your soul on fire, it's not worth the burn. Don't do anything you don't love, not like, but love, because you'll be miserable. You will not be successful. You may be successful out of luck, but it won't be anything else. It'll be just luck. You've got to wake up in the morning and look forward to going to do what you do.
Feel excited for
Feel
the day
excited
ahead.
about it. Don't do it and be miserable because you're trying to make money. There are easier ways to make money. And the pandemic has taught us life is so short, right? So short. So if it doesn't set your soul on fire, in everything in life, by the way, friendship, relationship, job, entrepreneurship, hobby, don't do it. Just don't play golf because everyone else is playing golf. If you hate it, play it because you love it. So I can't. And again, as you know, and I hope it shows, I go to lots of meetings, and there's not a single meeting I ever leave where people don't say, "Man, that guy's passionate about what he does." They may say annoying, they may say arrogant, they may say not the smartest guy, fine, but no one will ever say that I lack passion for what I do. So I think if you don't have passion about what you do, life's too short. Don't bother.
Absolutely. What a message to end up our conversation. I mean, I think, as you said, everything in life needs to be driven by passion. Everything, like every decision. And sometimes like we're so tightened in certain situations that we feel like, oh, but what if I, and it's true that it needs to be like passion, what drives you forward. And especially in in your professional career, that you're going to spend hours, endless, even if it's like, if you have a 9-to-5 job, just calculate how many hours you're going to put throughout your life. So imagine if it's your own business. So absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Bashar, again, we could be here for hours talking and talking and talking, because I think ultimately having a guest from the hospitality sector, which is something that's very close to my heart, something that is, I think, one of, if not the best or the most benchmarked sector, as I said before, in the world about experience and customer centricity, it is hospitality. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, your thoughts. And all of you, thank you for staying with us, for either listening or just watching our podcast, and see you on the next episode.